Well, I really want to welcome you to an exciting evening tonight. We're going to be talking about the divine feminine with Tara Galliano, and I'm very excited because um, I met Tara a while back as a function of some of the work that I do out of Berkeley, which is the Berkeley Energy Group, where we we look at a lot of things. We look at the divine, we look at the feminine and the masculine, we look at the energetics of relationship. We look at all of those things and learn how to manage the energy around them. And so when I met Tara and I said, "What is it that you do?" I was very, very excited. So Tara has a very broad background and a very broad offering. What we've asked her to come and speak on tonight for UCM is to speak about the divine feminine. And it's kind of related to the fact that May is a Mother's Day month. So that's sort of the orientation of it, the divine feminine. Not to say that we don't have a divine masculine, because we certainly do. And also not to suggest that the divine feminine exists only in women, because what we're going to find out about is how it exists in all of us. So a wonderful, lovely exploration this evening. And Tara has a practice and she's written a book. Do you have your book there to show us, Tara?
I do.
So fantastic. Rediscovering My Body. If you look her up by name, you can find out some of what she does. She'll certainly be talking about some of that. Many resources on the web through her email and other ways of contacting her. So can we just have a big round of applause to get started here with Tara Galliano?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are so grateful. And if you don't mind, Tara, can we light our candle?
Oh, please.
It's kind of our little tradition that we do right at the beginning, just to remind us that we are all that light for and with each other. And as also a way of welcoming you and thanking you for your incredible gift of presence and wisdom today.
Blessed be.
Thank you.
And so it is.
Oh, it is, yes.
So you have the floor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll say a little bit more about myself, is that I am a clinician. So I was trained as a psychotherapist. I've got a master's degree in psychology. I had a private practice in Boulder, Colorado for a number of years. And the name of my practice was Boulder Sex Therapy, because I am also a certified sex therapist. And so from that work, I had the great privilege and honor of working with women in particular. I worked with men as well, but I taught a class called Rediscovering My Body that was for women who had had cancer. So this process of rediscovering their bodies was a profound one. Oftentimes what I found was that they were grieving the loss of their previous body, that there was a lot of sadness, and that they had really gotten stuck in survival mode about how to experience pleasure, how to trust their body again, really, after having cancer. And so the journey that we went on together was one really of trust and of discovery, where I led them through activities and exercises based on my clinical work that helped them embody more their sense of pleasure and get past this stifling piece of death. I mean, I think so much of us, or so many of us, need to come to terms with our own mortality. And for these women, I'd say they were Amazon women, because they really wanted to get past being stuck there. Because when they were only thinking about their survival, that they weren't ever thinking about pleasure, and they certainly weren't thinking about pleasure for themselves. So really huge paradigm shift. And I was able to witness that at the end of the class. I wrote this book based on that class. And then I decided, before I published the book, to change it for all women, because what I knew then was that all women need this work, so we can reclaim pleasure in our bodies. And that was a number of years ago. And it was just published last year, but it was a number of years ago that I had this realization. And so now, I mean, part of the work that I've been doing and have studied with Chris is this energy work, because my understanding has evolved yet again. And I know that we all have this energetic polarity within ourselves of the masculine and the feminine. And so henceforth this talk exploring the divine feminine within all of us, because we all have that energy of receptivity, of intuition, of creation, which is different from the divine masculine, which is protective and serving and honoring, and really much more directive and holding the form for the creations that come forth with the divine feminine. And I didn't understand that at all. And I'm so blessed now to be able to understand a little bit and be able to articulate a little bit as well. And I'm going to stop right there, because I know this is a talk and I'm the expert, but in my teaching career at the University of Colorado and at Naropa and all of the workshops that I do, I like it to be a little bit interactive, because I want to know the lay of the land. I want to know who is present and what's important to you in your life and why you showed up. And you don't need to answer all of those questions, but I would love to know your name and what do you hope to gain from this talk this evening, so this way we can collaborate and co-create this together. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit.
So you want to know why we're here?
Yeah. What do you hope to get from this talk?
That's why we're here. Well, so just what you have to say right now is really, I just want to know what's going on, and this is, I want to know how you would fit into speaking at CCO. I think that would be awesome. I'd love to have you do it. And I wanted to fit in and be good for everybody. So I'm very much of a one-way person. My saying is I'd rather be happy than right. So for me it's like, let's agree. Let's just try to agree. And I'll give something and you give something, or you don't have to give something. I'll give something. Let's just, can we just have fun?
I love it. Okay, so that's good to know. Yeah. Some more laughter in the talk, huh? I love that. Good, great. How about you, Dottie? Would you like to share what you'd like to get out of this talk this evening?
Well, I'm always interested in what's going on that's new. That's one of the things I had mentioned earlier. When you're over 80, you can sometimes get stuck. And I like to hear the new things. What are people saying that's different than what I learned as I was moving through life? And so anytime I hear about something talking about a topic, looking at it from a different viewpoint, I want to hear about it. I especially like the idea of having able to talk about the feminine and having to talk about the divinity of the feminine. I mean, many of us are interested in following the goddess path. We're interested in Mother Mary. We're interested so much of the feminine, and quite often it gets lost in a patriarchal society. So that's what I'm here for.
Beautiful. All right, great. Thank you.
And I guess I'll follow Dottie. I'm April, and because of the patriarchal environment I was raised in a Protestant environment, I wasn't even exposed to Mary in a divine way. She was just the mother of Jesus. And so in my metaphysical exploration, I made connection with the divine feminine and the goddess. And I think since the beginning of the 90s, I've been a goddess practitioner and facilitated ceremonies to help women reconnect with the sacredness of their beings, not just their bodies, but their whole beings. But we definitely played a lot with the sensual, sexual, passionate part of the goddess and the maiden during Beltane and the ceremonies like that. So I'm here because, one, I'm supporting Chris, and two, as with Dottie, I'm curious if there's new stuff that I'm, need to know. So
I love it. Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you, April.
I can add, sorry that I'm not on video, I'm driving. I'm Sophia.
Hi, Sophia.
I am here. I am a single mom. I work in a very masculine job. So there's a lot of masculine that I have to pull. And I'm here to get an inspiration on how can I strengthen my feminine. What can I do to nurture my feminine while I have to function in a lot of masculine?
I love it. Great. Thank you. Very practical.
Cheryl?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm Cheryl, and I guess I'm here because I had cancer. I'm a survivor. I first had breast cancer in 2011, had a lumpectomy, and then 2014 we found that it went to the bone. I had a tumor on the top of my right leg. So at that point, I asked the oncologist, what now? My social worker told me to go home and get everything ready. But when I talked to the oncologist, she said, well, I kept somebody alive for 5 years. And I said, well, I'll take that. So it's about 7 or 8 years now. So I'm doing well. And it really didn't interfere with my pleasures. I always went on with my life like I didn't have cancer. You still have side effects because you have radiation and it kind of messes up your skin. And depending on what detergent you would use on your clothing, it still gets irritated. So if you have any questions on cancer survivor, I'm here.
I love it. Thanks so much for joining us, Cheryl. And I
Sure.
appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in about what they hope to get out of this talk this evening?
Well,
ahead,
I'm Janet. I'm Janet, and I would love to. I mean, I'm just so excited and thrilled. I mean, just reading the little bit that I read about you, Tara, and your ability to survive, what you've survived, and also to go deeper into that exploration of what it means to be in touch with our body. It's not always been my strong suit to be in touch with my body and to listen. And so I am here with open heart and open arms, and having worked in grief counseling for the past 45 years, I've always found that the greatest touchstone is the body. That's going to tell us, where to go and what to pay attention to. And the body never lies. And so I am just so grateful that you are here with us to facilitate this discussion into that deeper awareness. So I'm very grateful for myself and also for everyone that I might interact with. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Hi, this is Robin. Sorry, my camera just stopped working. Hi, Tara. I'm actually Galen's or Chris's partner. So that's not why I'm here, but I've done some classes and workshops on the divine feminine. I'm very interested to see where else or anything else new can be presented. I think it's a fascinating topic, and how partially how our culture doesn't support it very well. It doesn't identify the duality in each individual. And I think it's something that this particular culture really misses out on. And I witness other cultures that marry the two so beautifully. And I just would like to hear more about not so much the marriage, but just the balance and how differently people feel the feminine in them, not necessarily as women, but just separate as the feminine energy. I'm curious how other people respond to their own and how it manifests in them.
Beautiful. All right, great. Thanks, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm here because when I first heard Tara speak in a far more informal group, and I heard about what she did and her focus, I was immediately enthralled and wanted to bring her to UCM and CCL. So for that, I'm really, really pleased. On a more personal note, I was told decades ago that we all have the masculine and feminine in us, and that it's really good to have them in balance. And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. How's that going to help me in my life? And I'm still really leaning over toward an unbalanced, pretty heavy masculine. Although if you actually get me on a real authentic moment, I'm probably very feminine, but I hide that a lot. And what I've done over the years is I've tried to allow my feminine to come out, to find more safe ways, more safe places, more safe people. And I do want to say I've learned a lot from my partner, from Robin, and I watch her be wonderfully feminine. And then I, in my galoot sort of way, I try to model that. I don't know how successful I am. One of the things that I remember is Robin taught me that she loves the hearts of men. And it was like, where do I even start with that? But what a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I sort of hold that as the gem for me is, we can change, we can do better. We can do what we might have thought impossible. And so my touchstone there is learning how to love the hearts of men. And to me, I guess that's as feminine as I can think of. And on a more current note, with COVID and staying sheltered in place, I'm still living a sheltered life. I never cut my hair. I used to have a buzz cut and I never cut my hair. So this is a 13-month haircut, no haircut. And for 8 or 9 months, it was just really irritating having it grow out. And I just let it go. And I thought there was something happening, that maybe I would just find some part of me behind it. And so now I have almost long locks of silvery gray sage. And I'm now reluctant to cut it, because I think that where I'm moving toward in my life, the choices I'm making, the people I spend time with, the ways that I spend my time, the ways that I interact with people, as much fun as it would be to have a buzz cut again, I think I'm more leaning toward a little bit more mother energy, a little bit more grandmother energy, a little bit more nurturing energy. And not that I can't do it, but I'm allowing, in this case, this aspect of my body to lead and to see where it takes me. And to me, that's just, that's one example of how these energetics work for me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about hearing more, and the opportunity to learn and recognize more, that some things I might already have and didn't even realize, or some things that I might have thought were scary and didn't realize I actually had access to in a safe way. So I'm thrilled, and you can fix all of us by 8 o'clock.
I don't fix anybody. But welcome and thanks, Chris. That was a very generous introduction of yourself. I love it. I see so much more now. Yeah. So actually, the way that I like to begin, including the introductions, because it's so wonderful to get the lay of the land of who's present, of what lives within each of you speaking your truth, what you choose to share and what you don't choose to share is all very rich. And I think that that creates this experience that we're all having together. And so I would like to invite you to come deeper into that. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And if you're not, you can lower your eyes at a 30-degree angle and just soften your gaze. I like to put my feet flat on the floor and my hands in my lap. And I'm just going to guide you through a brief meditation, because coming back into yourselves, coming back into your body is where profound wisdom is. And so in this seated posture, feeling your spine erect, feeling the top of your spine reaching up into the sky, and the base of your spine reaching towards the earth, and feeling the extension and feeling the support that the spine gives you, and really leaning into and relaxing into that. And imagining a cord going down from the base of your spine into the earth, tethering you to the heart of the earth, and imagining that cord connecting to something solid. I like to imagine crystals, and just feeling that connection to the earth. And coming up to the soles of your feet and feeling from each of them a cord extending down into the ground, and also connecting to the heart of the earth, where Mother Earth has warm, nourishing feelings for each of us. And feeling the solidity in that connection, how it holds you, and allowing those warm, nurturing, nourishing feelings to come up through the cords in your feet and in the base of your spine, filling your toes, the soles of your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your legs, your pelvis, your hips, your abdomen, your chest, your back, and your fingertips, your hands, your arms, filling you completely from within, this warm, nourishing feeling that the heart of the earth has for you, coming into your neck, your face, your head, filling you completely. And feel how good that feels to be completely full from within. And imagine in your heart space a chalice or a fountain or spring. And that it's overflowing. It's completely full with the earth energy. And it nourishes you. And it fills you completely, allowing you to relax and be nurtured. And as the chalice or spring overflows and fills, others can freely drink from this chalice, and it does not impact you. And allow the energy to flow through your heart space, spilling over to the ground and filling you up again. Or imagine it just going into the ground. And feeling how good that feels to be completely nourished from within. And placing your hands on your skin and saying to yourself, I live here. And when you're ready, coming back to this space that we're sharing with each other, opening your eyes. See some yawns, great. You must be relaxed. Does anybody want to share what they noticed about their experience and how they feel now compared to how they came in?
More centered.
More centered, great, wonderful. Anyone else?
I feel heavier in a good way. Heavier, like here.
Great,
Here.
good, wonderful, good.
I liked it that it was, I liked the fountaining, and there was something very nurturing about it. Instead of turning the volume up, to be washed, to feel awashed with that fountaining was really lovely. A very nurturing meditation.
Great, good, wonderful, Chris, thank you. Okay. So now that we've come into this Zoom space together and grounded, what we're exploring tonight is, let's see, I would say that all genders, and this is from the flyers, that all genders can benefit from understanding our natural energetics. And so this experience of grounding is one of experiencing the energy within your body and how it can be up and out of the body and how it can come back into the body and give you more information about a felt sense. And for me, particularly as a sex therapist and a tantric educator, it is that felt sense of being in the body that's so rich and potent for each of us. And then some of the things that were listed is how this can improve your relationships. And improve communication. And for me, one of the, I guess, the most important pieces, and the reason why I wrote this book, Rediscovering My Body, is that this is a guidebook, that this is a way for people to begin to catalog the sensations within their body, that they can begin to understand what it is that they're experiencing in a very deep and profound way, because they're going on a journey of allowing themselves permission to go through the process and to have these experiences similar to this one tonight and the grounding exercise. So when we're able to tap into the energies of our body, then we have a better felt sense of what lives within, what's true for ourselves. Oftentimes, I like to frame this in terms of the masculine and the feminine energies. And so the feminine energies, as we spoke before, were about openness, receptivity, intuition, and the masculine energy is more about the directness, the efficiency, and the action, and how they coexist and how they effectively work together. And I heard you say, Chris, earlier that part of the energy that you live within is the masculine energy, is the doing energy that we have that we as women have lived into. I think, Sophia, you mentioned this as well, that you live in a more masculine and work environment, and how then that draws that energy out of us, because that's what we feel like we need to bring forth to meet the work environment or how we're showing up, that oftentimes we're given accolades or kudos for the masculine energy of doing things. And so we're evaluated on what type of productivity we have created. And that's exhausting when we live in that energy exclusively. And that patriarchy, as I've heard, I guess, April and I think Dottie, maybe you mentioned that as well, is the overlay that we experience that shuts down the feminine side of our being. And particularly as a sex therapist, how I've seen that overlay within the body and where that shame resides and the constrictions that it causes within the physiology of our being, which is huge, because those blockages then can cause, oh goodness, all sorts of diseases or illnesses that we experience, or complications within our life, but just in general, constrictions where we're not having energy flow. And when we're feeling more in the flow, then we're feeling more alive, we're feeling more vital, and we're feeling more joy. So I just really wanted to name the patriarchal experience that we often have. And that's not, again, just for women. It is for women and men and all genders. Everyone has that experience that we are given. Yeah, accolades seems to be the word that keeps on coming to me, that we're given those accolades when we produce, and that is not the only way of being in this world. And that I think what's happening now, so much of what I've seen with coronavirus and everything shutting down, and the way people have really needed to slow down their lives and not do as much, that we've been able to explore other ways of being in the world, other ways that are not so doing focused, which is more the masculine, but more of the being focused. How do we show up and just be? And so in coronavirus, with the inability to go out and travel and be with other people, how do we cultivate that within ourselves? And I think a lot of people have had a lot of loneliness and a lot of solitary experiences, but also some, I would say I've spoken with a lot of people who've had mystical experiences, who've had experiences where they're able to cultivate energetically within themselves things that they weren't aware of before. And so part of the learning that I've done this, I guess, past 2-3 years has been my work with Linda Cesara as the energy work in Berkeley that Chris has mentioned. And also another amazing teacher that I've studied with is Tammy Kent, and she works with the pelvic bowl. So she's a holistic, a holistic pelvic care practitioner, and she's a physical therapist. So she works with that space energetically, and she works with it physically as she's able to now. But that is the space that in our bodies, whether we identify as male, female, or any gender, that is the space within our body where the female or the feminine energy resides, is in the pelvic bowl, in that space. And that is the potent energy that we can create from. Some people might say the second chakra or the first chakra is its combination of that, where we're able to create and move forth from that space. And I think a lot of people are learning more about this, and that it's becoming more familiar in the vernacular, and that people want to study and they want to explore this energetically. And so I invite you, again, if you're comfortable, to place your hands within your own body and place your hands on your 3 inches below your belly and just feel that space. Because the part of coming back into the feminine is the opportunity to have a felt sense. And so words are part of the transmission because we can understand better that way, but it also is the felt sense. So I'm just gonna be quiet for a moment and have you tap into your own energetic experience of this space 3 fingers below your belly button.
Still on my belly.
I love that. Good. And now imagine yourself walking from, and it's fine if you'd like to close your eyes, that always helps me bring my attention more internal, from the pubic mound to the hip. And if you'd like, you can feel with your hands along that area and feel the bony structure. And again, it doesn't matter what gender you identify as, but this space within the body is a really potent one for bringing forth creation. And to feel into that space as you walk around and imagine the vastness of that space. And notice if there's any constrictions there, any tension, any tightness. Notice if there's more openness. And again, there are no right or wrong answers. That's just information for you about what exists in your body. When you're ready, coming back to this space, and is anybody willing to share what they noticed within that space within themselves?
My belly hangs too low for me to do that. Yeah, yeah. But it still felt good to be touching myself.
I love it. And could you imagine, Dottie,
Yeah.
where the inside of that was?
Right, right.
I love it. Okay, great. Good. Great job.
There's an interesting energetic there, because never having had children or in being anywhere close to pregnant, that's not something in my history. But what came out really loudly was the sense of creation.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been working with my people that I have class with. We've been working with those concepts, but I just tonight really felt that sort of an affirmation of, yes, there is creation there. Just
beautiful.
It surprised me. It has always been a very intellectual concept, but it was really surprising to feel below my belly and then to have this wave of creation come. It's quite unexpected and shocking in its own right, and I think tells me I must be doing the right thing.
Beautiful.
Scary, true, forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that, because again, it's not exclusive to one who identifies as living in a woman's body, is that we all have this energy available to us, whether we have a uterus or whether we have ovaries, whatever our body parts may look like, but it's the energetic quality of creation and how we bring that forth. And so again, that lives in that area of the body. So you were so eloquent with that, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. Now, anyone else like to share what their experience was? No? Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what I found, Tara, is that it was wonderful, as Dottie was saying, to be able to actually touch myself there, because I don't often spend much attention there. And to just bear witness to the energy that is there that maybe I've not really taken advantage of.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I love this because, oh, go ahead, Dottie.
No, I was going to say you probably have encountered this because I know when I do psychic readings and when I'm talking to people about touching their body, and I say, well, you're not in a sexual relationship with anybody. And they say, well, there isn't anybody. And I say, there's you.
Yes.
And they look, oh, I couldn't do that. And I said, think about you touching you. And there's somehow a horrible misnomer that if you touch yourself, you're doing something wrong. I think a lot of young women got caught by mom touching themselves or got taught somehow that you can't do that. And I know when you're talking about discovery of the body, I think that's one of the most amazing things is when women realize it's okay to touch themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a great way to explore the divine feminine. I think that's I'm reading this book right now. I just want to share with you. It's the Magdalene manuscript. You probably
Yes.
have all read that, huh?
Yes.
I'm just reading it for the first time. So yes. Yeah. Beautiful.
And I wanted to just interrupt for a moment, Tara, and ask our wonderful April, isn't it true that all acts of pleasure are sacred to the goddess?
They are. Absolutely. That's part of the charge. And I apologize, I'm not sharing much because I'm having some coughing issues. So I'm probably going to listen more than share. But yes, that is definitely our charge.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sending you lots of blessings, April, to heal your coughing. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, thank you, Dottie, about bringing up the sexualized piece. What I find is that when I lead people through this experience of placing their hands on their pubic mound and following through the bony structures, that oftentimes they've not touched themselves in that way that was not sexualized. And that oftentimes it is only through the sexual touch that they have experienced those parts of their body. And ultimately, that pelvic bowl is for creation, is that it is for creation for all of us as humans. And that is the space where we're able to bring forth from. And oh goodness, I would say it's such a patriarchal overlay that has become such a sexualized area of the body. And that is the only way that we can conceptualize it or begin to speak about it. And it's just so not true. And when we're able to access it in a non-sexualized way, we're able to amplify the power of that area, is that when it is limited by just seeing it as sexual, and it becomes, I would say, objectified, and the problematic. And we can see where that spirals out and how that lives so much in our culture.
It reminds me also of the breasts. I mean, breasts have become so sexualized, and yet the most profound purpose is to nurture and sustain a child, and to just really separate the sexuality from the breastfeeding is just I was a breastfeeding support person for 25 years and running into that a lot with women. It's like, feeling like, oh, they can't do it in anywhere that anybody could see because it would feel like it was sexual. It was a very challenging and sad dynamic.
Yes. Yes. And I've heard, I've heard women say that they felt like they were shut down as well, that if they wanted to breastfeed in public, that they couldn't, that they needed to wear something over their baby and over their breast so they were covered, so they were seen as decent. And I think, yes, so women are sensitive, and we can say that has been part of our experience, that we've needed to not pleasure ourselves, as Dottie was saying, or not breastfeed our child. And again, that's a litmus test for where we're at with patriarchy, because again, it impacts everybody. So it's not just those of us who identify as living in a woman's body, but it is all people that we have those limitations or those experiences. And when we're able to embrace energetically the masculine and the feminine energies within our body, we're able to, oh goodness, do so much more. But and I would say it's this dismantling of patriarchy that is happening now, that really is coming about as women are becoming more empowered, as women are becoming more sexually empowered. And so that's a big, yeah, that's a big pathway forward and probably a different conversation. But I love that it's arising here, because that is what happens. It's in the field and the world is changing. But to come back to this conversation of how do we embody that energetically within our own being, it is, I believe, through the felt sense, because the body is one of the greatest gifts that we have as humans. It is the vehicle that we can achieve enlightenment, or know the vastness of God, or come into this spiritual, I guess, ecstasy that is possible. It is the vehicle of the body, and that there's other ways that help with that, like breath and sound and movement. So I'm interested too, April, that you're struggling coughing, because one of the things I wanted to speak about too is how the pelvic bowl, or the second chakra, connects to the throat chakra and the expression of that, and how that's so important. And that is part of the process that happens when we're able to unify our masculine and feminine energy, is that there is expression of that sound to be able to speak our truth. That's so powerful. That's happening more and more now. So yeah, yeah, really important work.
I have a question.
Yes, Robin.
Hi. Well, you don't have to answer this. I just kind of want to put it in the space a bit. So, as women, I think we're aware of where the feminine gets shut down or denied, or so many things that are negative. And I'm just kind of curious about your experiences with men having their divine feminine shut down, and how that plays out.
Thank you. Beautiful. I love that. So important.
Behind the tape.
Yeah. It's interesting. The way that I see it most is the over usage of their masculine energy. And so not living into the feminine energy, not really giving themselves permission to explore the divine feminine within themselves, not knowing how, not knowing any mentor who is in a male body that could teach them that pathway forward. It seems like it's so limited. But the ability for a man to tap into his openness or receptivity or intuition is huge. And then we can really begin to see how, I wouldn't use the word balance, because balance always makes me think of a fulcrum, but I'd say that they've got more integration of those energies, that there's more of a flow, that they know, not necessarily in a cognitive sense, which is also what I see in my clinical practice, is that oftentimes men feel like they can only live up here. And if they live in their body, they live in their penis, but the rest of their body is not inhabited. So this, goodness, this desert really that they don't live in. And all of those are such a disservice. I'd say that the patriarchy perpetrates on men in particular. And I am a mother of a son, and so I'm very passionate about those issues, about how men are able to integrate and know the divine feminine. My mentor, Tammy Kent, also had 3 sons, and her husband that she lives with, and the sons were raised in her household, really normalizing the experience of menses. And so to really honor a woman when she was in her cycle. And I think what that does for young men is it allows them to understand more of the feminine energy, and then be able to understand a little bit more about how that lives or resides within themselves. And so, yeah, obviously they don't have their menses, but they have a felt sense of, sometimes I'm not always energetically active, but sometimes I need to rest. And it doesn't always correlate to I'm sick or that I'm tired. It's just something else, maybe something about the cycles, or something larger than themselves that resides within themselves. And so cultivating that awareness with conversations like this is really critical. That young men know that they can come back to the inherent wisdom of their bodies and be able to understand what the felt sense is and the gift of that, and that not all knowledge is perceived through the brain or cognitively. That this is a wonderful instrument and it has its limitations, especially when we use it as a default all the time. It's like there's so many ways of knowing in the world. And I think that is a true gift of exploring the divine feminine, is that there are ways of knowing that are not always logical, not always rational, aren't easily explained, maybe aren't linear. They can be a little bit more circular, and that they're all valid and that they are worth being honored as well. But I feel for people in male bodies, because they oftentimes don't have the relationships that would support them in understanding or knowing their divine feminine. I don't think that's a transmission that happens often with fathers to sons. And that's a sadness, I think, that happens in our culture, because we live within a fractured society, that we're, nuclear families that live nuclear family lives. And as you all know, because you live within this beautiful community, that it takes a community to support an individual, that to support a couple, to support a family, and that this is such a gift that you have given yourselves and given each other. But this is so important that we have more reflections of who we are than just our primary relationship. And that is an exploration of the divine feminine, because females know sisterhood. And when we know that within ourselves, the exploration of the divine feminine, we know that relationships are important. We know that we need to relate to other people, and that we don't always need to dump everything on our primary partner, because that creates, a toxic relationship, and it creates a huge imbalance in the relationship. And that we're meant to live within a circle, and explore that energy in a circular manner.
I want to crack a joke, and then I have a question. It's like only Hillary could have written the book, It Takes a Village. I noticed something going all the way back to the pelvic bowl conversation. I noticed something, and I have Janet's permission to ask a question. I want to start for a minute with Celine Dion. I was watching somebody describing how you sing, how does one sing, and they were deconstructing Celine Dion, doing some very intense anthemic work, and talking about, okay, now watch her, because she's tiny, right? She plants her body and does these things before she belts out the highest high note. So I was watching that again, energetically and physiologically. So kind of with that in the background, I wanted to ask Janet a question, and Janet says it's okay if I do so. Tara, what you don't know is Janet, among her many, many, many talents, she's a composer of music and she plays and sings, but you might have guessed that. And she does, so what it looks like is Dottie gives a sermon and then turns to Janet and goes, huh? And Janet does it in song, off the cuff. So talented beyond words. So the question that I have, not so much that access, but I wanted to ask Janet about, Janet, when you think about what we just did with that pelvic exercise, and then when you think about where what you inhabit when you do your songs, and I'm thinking of the songs you make up on the fly. So my question is, I wonder whether you go to that creative place that we talked about, and or if that's not where you think that you go, what can you imagine it might be like if that's where you went? And you can turn my question into anything you want to answer.
I love it, Chris. I love it. So what happens for me is it's like a heartbeat. So I open myself up to receive it. And then, very much, it sounds like what Celine Dion does, is I plant myself so that I can express it. So it's like I feel a wave coming in, of energy into my body, and then I express it out. And sometimes I'm very surprised at what comes out. Sometimes I have no idea. And the way and the direction it flows, it's almost like a river that comes in my body. And you're right, it comes in that pelvic, first and second chakra, kind of comes in, and then it comes out, right, in that area. And I can feel it. It's almost like feeling a wave.
What you just described, we're told in the energy class that Tara and I go to, we're taught that for the women, the energy comes into the pelvis and goes out the heart, and for the men goes into the heart and out the pelvis, which is the way you might imagine tab A and slot B working. And so you've just demonstrated that in just the way that you've spoken, but also the gestures that you're making. You sort of just did that thing totally classically without me cueing you at all. I mean, really, really amazing.
Wow.
Consummate receiving and delivering.
Wow, thank you. I had no idea. Thank you for asking.
I thought you'd be okay with that.
I love it. That was great. I'm just curious now that you've mentioned that, Chris, how many people are familiar with the negative and positive polarities within the male body and within the female body?
I don't know what kind of polarity work is done here. What do you guys know?
I also studied with Linda, so I know.
Oh, heavens. Hello.
I love it.
Okay. Did you find out because of the email blast?
Yeah, it was because of the email and the energy class.
Love it. Okay. Well, welcome. There's several of us here tonight.
Great.
Yeah. So for the folks that aren't part of that group, do you guys? We've never talked about. I don't remember in 8 years talking about male and female, positive and not. You may not want to call it positive and negative, but the direction of flow, the polarities. Have we ever talked about that?
Well, then let's talk about it now that it's in the field, because it seems like some of us know and some of us don't know, and all of us could know. Yes. Yay. So in your own body, if you identify as a woman, and I think, April, you were saying this because women give life through their breasts, right? They nurse, right? They give out through this heart space. And I would say energetically, it's quite a familiar space, I would say, for a lot of women to live in, that they feel the relational aspect of it. They feel connected to others in that way. And so I do actually use the term positive. And so that's a positive way that energy flows out. And so then the negative on a woman's body would be the vagina. And so that is where I would say there's a vulnerability, that there's a desire to be more discretionary about the energy that one receives there. And so, the positive goes out and the negative goes in. And so that's the loop that we create energetically in these bodies of women. And for men, it is different. And so the energetics that they carry, even though they both have the feminine and the masculine energy, the way they hold it in their body is different. And so the positive receptor for a male is the penis. It goes out, it gives life, it gives semen, and then, it's a much more comfortable place for a man to live. And then the negative receptor is a heart space. And that is a very vulnerable area for a man. And I think oftentimes that women, we don't recognize that and we don't know that. And we put a lot of expectations on men to be open in that area. And it's not one of comfort for them. And so when a man gives his heart to another, it is a very vulnerable experience. Not that it's not for women, but it's a different energetic experience. And so the negative receptor, again, for the men is the heart space. And so their energy goes in the inverse direction than it does for women.
So one of the things that's really fun, we have a number of gay couples here, same-sex couples here, or partners on the call. And this is an area that I dealt with quite a bit because I've actually had quite a number of years in that Berkeley group. And it's one that took many, many years to kind of understand and be happy with. So I thought we were always going to talk about the masculine and the feminine and the male and the female. And yeah, I'd always have to translate, right? Because you always have to translate. Well, that was a long time ago. And, you know, the good news is we're not all translating all the time anymore. But at the time, when I was standing in my resistance and stomping my feet, and you don't understand because my partners are women and I'm a woman and so just to explain how that works, it's really kind of cool. So the woman expresses with the heart and receives, right? Receives with the chakra down there, whatever. So what happens is that, yes, it flows out of the heart, but then it goes into the other person's vaginally, and then it goes out of the heart, and you end up with an infinity loop.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Which is really, really kind of astounding, and special and fun to play with. So the energetic does feel different, and it is the infinity, and there's an equitability there. There's a different kind of balance there, independent of the nature of the one woman who may run more masculine and one who may run more feminine. So I mean, there's always these very, very cool things about that. And depending on what you can see, because some people can see and some people cannot, but those who can see can actually watch it go. And we had a woman who was pregnant and she gave birth and she brought the baby in and basically, yep, look at it, there's that polarity, you know, from dead on, from the very beginning. And so one of the things that I liked about it was very much different, but still as a person with a bit of an engineering brain, you know, the fluid dynamics are still true, right? It's still happening, but it's happening within a set of receptacles that have a different configuration. Yes, I'm going to my engineering brain to say that. And so the lesbian couple is going to have the one infinity loop, where the gay man couple is going to have the other infinity loop. And the other thing I want to say that to me was really, really important, and not so much because it's where I live, but I think it's where I see pain, is this issue, this vulnerability that Tara was talking about, that women are, so I'm going to say it differently than she did, but it's, I think, the same message. Women are vulnerable in their vagina more so than in their heart. Not that they're not vulnerable in their heart, but I think we know differently how to manage it. And men are vulnerable in their heart. And so the way to inflict harm to a man is to hurt him in his heart. He knows how to defend himself physically, but he's probably not prepared to have to defend himself in his heart. And I can't say that I speak from absolute experience. I speak from a tenderness about watching, you know, learning this kind of stuff and watching what happens and being around men who have dedicated their life to balancing their feminine and living in the receptive, and watching how different they are from others, and watching them be so sensitive and easily hurt, and the beauty of that and the care. So that brings my nurturing out, the care that I want to take. And I won't say that I'm practiced at launching darts to men. That's not how I grew up or how I believe.
Thank
but
goodness.
I've seen it done. And so women, you know, perhaps as much as men need to get their misogyny under control. Women need to be really careful about how are they treating men. And, our women may not realize that attacking men in their hearts is so different from beating them up physically. And it's just something about accountability on the part of women. So not to negate any of the issue of patriarchy, but in an era, like for us at the circles that we are in, we have a lot of very sensitive men. So it's more about, thinking of the men that we love who share a lot of the beliefs and the sensitivities that we share, and just taking it one step further. So to really show love to men, not something a card-carrying lesbian was, taught how to do, but it's been an amazing thing for my life, is to be able to pull that feminine from within and express it through heart to men, obviously ones who either are ready to accept it, or that I'm ready to give it independent of how they might react. And both of those are true.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll step off my soapbox.
yeah, beautiful blessing and intention. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Corky, I see your mouth moving. Did you want to share something? I don't hear you.
We can't hear you, honey.
Can't hear you. No.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Now, okay. They're gonna. I see.
I'd like to share.
Wait just a sec. So I got it. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
What
Yes.
I find, being a lesbian, is that I can have a different relationship with men. So what it means is that I can be friends with a guy and a male, okay, and that we don't even have to say, we're going to be friends with no sex. We can just be friends, and it just really makes it more open, and we can hug, and we can talk about anything we want to, and just know that we care for each other. But that is just very mutual. That we respect each other, and that we can even flirt, because you can flirt with anybody, right, male or female. So it's always I find it to be very rewarding to be able to relate with men, and the men that I am around are they know who I am, they know who I'm with. There's no competition. It's just we're people enjoying each other's company, and that's it.
Beautiful. I love it.
Okay, I'm done. Here, you go, Dottie.
Great. Thanks.
I think you ought to hear from the third version, because I'm bisexual. And for me, I don't see there's any difference. I don't relate that much differently to a man as I do to a woman. I was married for 45 years, and I've been in a relationship for 35 with this wonderful lady. And for me, each energy blends so well when you're communicating. The only time energies didn't mesh for me was when one of us did something that inadvertently hurt the other person, and we didn't know how to explain why it was hurt. And I think that sexual energy is very important, but I think understanding is a lot more important in a relationship, because I really enjoy long-term relationships, because the more you're there, the more you understand each other. And for me, the sex is great no matter what.
Beautiful. I love it. Great. Thank you, Dottie.
And I think April.
Yeah, April, you wanted to share something?
Well, I was just going to share that my younger son has a real has had a real challenge with his friends because of his sensitivity. And over time, they've learned through him, through his experience. But he has great sensitivity, and it comes up often when he's not got home as the anchor, like if they'd go away on a weekend trip or something. And they just couldn't understand him. And it's taken a long time. They're still friends, and they're good friends. And so I think that when the men who do have a little more balance of the masculine and feminine, and this kid played semi-pro football. I mean, he is not, I mean, he's got the body piece down too, but he has been a teacher for his peers, which has been a real gift for them, I think. And I think that that's more and more these new generations coming in. I think there's going to be less of this dichotomy, and a little more alignment and balance of both. And they're just going to have to teach each other, because definitely the later generations didn't do a very good job. So I just wanted to share that. I don't have anything to share about sex. So
I love it. That was great. Thanks, April. And I think that's so important, that it's not going to be, I think in the future, this dichotomy or this binary, that there's going to be more fluidity in terms of gender and how one inhabits their masculine and their feminine energies, because we have all of that, and it's just really understanding how to work with it. And I think knowing where it lives within the physiology is a great way to help it land. So when we know that for men, their heart area is a negative receptor, that we can have a little bit more understanding then about how they're going to receive the information, or how they're going to be able to experience things in a heartfelt way. And there might be some constriction, or there might be some vulnerability there. And the same is true for us as women. And when we're able to have a better sense of the masculine and the feminine energies within ourselves, then we can bring out the masculine energy and protect our feminine energy when we need it. Saying, set that boundary or make that appropriate request, and it's in balance. And the speaking of the voice, I love that you brought that up, Chris, about Janet singing and understanding that wave that comes up, because that is the expression of the creative energy. And so I like exploring the sound, because it creates form to the creative impulse that lives within our pelvic bowl as we were feeling that. And so the form is, I would say, more masculine, and that we all contain that. We all have that ability to cultivate that within ourselves, and that it's a wonderful opportunity when we're able to relax enough and understand where the creative impulses within our body live, how they want to be expressed, that we give ourselves the opportunity to kind of marinate in that is really important. When we get in the cycle of do, and we don't have a little bit more reflection or a little bit more pause, then we're overdoing or over exerting the masculine energy. And the feminine energy, again, is going to be about the pause, the intuition, the receptivity, the slowing down. It's going to be about conversations that are more like this and not as linear, where there's the expert speaking at people and you're the audience, but it's more about this engagement, because that's what the feminine does. That's how we embody the feminine.
One thing I was thinking about when we were talking about the polarity is, and how you're talking about what the feminine job is and the masculine job is, and at least that's how I'm hearing it, is, you know, the feminine, the woman, the way the woman basically is nurturing the man's heart and protecting his heart, and the masculine will protect the woman's creative, the receptive area. And certainly I was taught how we do that exchange with you know, same sex or not, and that energy, when that flows, it's quite powerful and it's really wonderful. But the goal initially is to have that energy flowing in our own bodies And that's intense. And I don't have that experience all the time, but I have had it almost without trying sometimes. And I remember the first time that happened, and it was something that I was consciously getting dressed for work or something. And I remember walking around going, oh my God, is that what that feeling is? And it was so powerful. It was like walking around, not like Sheena, Queen of the Amazons or whatever, but it was this, what I think I really understood feminine empowerment, the feminine empowerment. And it wasn't overbearing. It wasn't angry. It was strong, but it was incredibly gentle. And then the masculine was also in a very protective mode. So it was this constant circular flow. And I've been trying to get back to that understanding and that practice more regularly. And it's not an easy thing to do. And it's also not easy to calm it down once it starts, I think, because it's quite powerful. And but it's such an interesting thing, because if you were able to do that internally within yourself, then the grasping at the external is not going to be so offensive. Thinking, God, I really want that energy, or I really like that. It's like, well, provide it for yourself first.
Beautiful.
And then, but it's yeah. So I love that exchange and that protection. Like our job is to protect our own heart. Our own masculine protects our own feminine, and vice versa. And it's a nice acknowledgement, but it's I think it's a daily practice and a daily reminder that doesn't always happen, but it's a wonderful place to go.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that, Robin. That's a great insight. And yes, the union of the masculine and the feminine happens within each of us, regardless of what gender we identify as. And that when it's in balance, then we feel differently about ourselves and how we show up in relationship. And I love that. That, again, when we are able to identify the physical locations within our body, then we have a better understanding of how to run that energy and balance it within our own being. The understanding that the positive receptor is the chest area, the heart area for women, and the negative receptor is the vaginal area for women, is a great illustration. And you can just imagine that then running the energy, and that you can do that at any time, at any moment. You can do it right now. I mean, as I'm speaking, and that the energy is opposite for men, or for people that identify as men. And so the negative is the heart space and the positive is the penis. And so they're running the energy in the inverse. And that is a great way to come into balance, because when you're in balance, then you're going to influence and affect other people, and you're going to have a better outcome. You're probably going to have better communication with them and an enhanced relationship with them as well. So any other questions at this point? Nope. Okay. Well, I'm feeling pretty complete with this. I feel like.
Tara, I have a question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So we put some boundaries on this conversation, and it's being recorded, and we want people who come to UCM to have a good sense of who we are, and we've done great, just beautiful. I love this. I wonder if you could talk about how a woman only, because this was geared for men and women here.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk about what would a woman only workshop look like, and how might it be different from the more universal conversation that we've had here. We're talking about the feminine here, but we're talking about it in everybody. And I wonder what a workshop, if you had a 2 or 3 hour workshop, how would that be different? Because that would be women only. And so you'd be, addressing one side of a two-sided thing.
Correct. Yeah. And so I would say the biggest piece is that we would be able to dive into the experiential activities in a much richer way, because people will have identified as a woman. And so really coming into the pelvic space, having a better understanding of the uterus, the ovaries, And again, not that anybody would need to have any of those organs, but the energetic space, because there's different energetics of the uterus, of the ovaries, and that felt sense is really powerful and potent for women to tap into. It gives them a better sense of empowerment of how to begin to speak their truth, to understand the wisdom that's contained within their own body. I think oftentimes what happens is that we're referencing outside of ourselves and we're not tapping into the vast wisdom that is within us. And that is a huge piece that happens in those 2 or 3 hour workshops, because women feel safe. They feel like they're with sisters. And in 2 or 3 hours, a lot of the remnants that we live in here in patriarchal society gets to dissolve a little bit, and the container feels safer. So women are able to be a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open. And I would say in that space, then there's opportunity for more transformation. And that's a huge difference. And so this is a mixed conversation for all genders, for all beings, because we all have masculine and divine energy, masculine and feminine energy. And I think that we can understand it a little bit better from the basis of some of the tenets that we discussed this evening. But I think for a deeper understanding, exploration within a same-sex workshop is powerful.
I want to mention something. When we were talking about exploring your body, how do you deal with people who are just so dysfunctional as far as their body? I'm constantly hearing from women who say, well, if I don't lose weight, nobody's going to love me. If I don't have my nose fixed or my boobs bigger or my, and I'm one of these people that say, accept yourself. But and more, I thought we were getting over this. But now when we were talking to somebody last night when they were talking about girls eating cotton balls with sugar water on it so they would fill up their stomach and they could stay skinny. And the way that different people are doing the whole weight issue, and it seems to be more feminine related than masculine. And it's that I've got to look a certain way or nobody's going to love me. And you were talking about your book is Rediscovering the Body. Do you go into that at all, the body dysphoria that some people have?
There is some information on there on body image. And the work that I do is really for women who are ready to dive in a little bit deeper. And that if they're not loving themselves in a real and authentic way, then they probably aren't really gravitating to the work that I do. And I hear that a lot of, I would say not just women, but men as well have this idea of body dysmorphia, and that it is increased because of so much of the social media. And I would say I've talked to plenty of clients who've had the discomfort of seeing themselves on video. And so being on Zoom all the time, whereas before they could just go about their day, not have to look at their reflection, but now they need to see themselves, and that it's caused a lot of discomfort. And so when there's an awareness that they're having the experience of this discomfort, then we can speak and I can help. But when they're not even in that place of awareness and they're just in the shame and they're in the self-hate, it's a harder place to begin. And unfortunately, some of us are still there. And that, I'd say it's a spiral, like we revisit it. And so even though we may feel like, okay, I've done that, and here it is again, but it looks a little bit different. It's just my sense of how we are human.
That's kind of what happened with me and the hair. I mean, I relate to that. I don't have a horrific body image, but I also don't have a great one. And and I really liked my punked out hair. So it's been all of those things. It's actually a multi-layered situation for me to have long gray and somewhat slightly thinner hair. I'm used to having a real heavy hair, and I have a lot of medium hair. And so I don't, I just turned 65, and it feels like lots of things in my life are turning at the same time. It feels like the the clock hands turned, the alarm went off, and everything said, oh, we're supposed to all go get different now. So there've been a lot of changes recently that are far more accelerated than I was used to. And so in as much as I still want to accept a lot of those things, it's for me, it's just a lot of patience. Definitely, a constant self-love or checking one's criticism at the door.
Mhm.
Like, oh, let's remember. So it doesn't carry me, it doesn't take me down too bad, but I can see the ebbs and the flows.
Mhm.
I had another
I
question.
think hair is a big topic. Yeah, many
Yes,
different ways to talk about
absolutely.
hair. Yes,
Yes.
especially with my work with women who had cancer, hair was often a big topic about how we spoke about it. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chris.
Oh, hair isn't a big topic for me. I lost it when I was 22. I went from wearing wigs to wearing hats. It's like, hair's here, gone tomorrow. One of those things that you just accept about yourself. And that, I think, is that whole acceptance is something that I never understand when people say, oh, I don't want you to take my picture.
Yeah.
Why not? Well, I don't look good. And a quick story, because I thought this was so neat. One year I gave pictures of all the people I'd taken and put them in photograph albums and gave them to them for Christmas. And most people had albums. And one gal only had 2 pictures in a skinny little album. And she said, I don't have any pictures. And I said, you were going to wait till you're thin. And she looked at the picture and she goes, I was thin then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great story. I love that.
Wow.
Mhm.
I did have another topic if this is a reasonable thing to do, and
Oh,
just
yeah.
because
Wait just a minute. Cheryl, did you have
Yeah,
your hand up?
Cheryl had her hand up. Let's see.
Yeah. I belong to another Zoom group on changing eating habits. And there was a workshop this past week, and one of the assignments was to look at your body, your naked body in the mirror. Well, a lot of people had a lot of problem with that. That was a really hard thing for a lot of those people, because most of the people that are in this group are overweight. But I didn't have the problem with looking at myself, but I was in shorts and a knee shirt that day. But I realized I had a friend coming over to do repair work, and I had to change clothes before he got here. So some people can accept their own body, but they can't share their body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 I love that. Thank you, Cheryl.
Mhm.
So one
April,
of the
did you want to share?
April?
so I celebrate my Willendorf body, and I have images of skinny goddesses and I have images of voluptuous goddesses. And having an image from the past that was
Mhm.
honored made it so much easier for me to appreciate what this is. Inanna's breasts sink down to her waist, and the myth is she could nurture and feed the whole tribe because she has such big breasts. So this for me, and when I work with women, I try to really expose them to these images to help them recognize that it's like this is us. Some of us are skinny, some of us are voluptuous. My son, when he was very little, said, Mom, you're fat. I said, no, I'm not, I'm voluptuous. And I was way skinnier then than I am now, but I always have had a belly. And it's like to recognize, and when you talked about the belly at the beginning, it reminded me of the belt of the goddess, the power source, and the rituals that you can do around recognizing. And that's where you were going you were tapping into it in just a different way. But this idea that the power of I'm not really big into holding goddesses up as like something to worship. I'm more interested in helping women recognize the goddess within themselves.
Beautiful. I love
Having
that.
these images to know that it's like we're not the first ones.
Right.
You know, and to really be able to lean into that. And so I facilitate women's retreats, and we don't run naked in the woods, but we run naked from the hot tub to the yurt. And
Love it.
one time we made staffs that retreat, and I had my staff and I was naked and I plopped it down and I said, I am, the goddess or something in the middle of the sleeping yurt. And it was like, it felt like such truth in that moment, and it felt safe, and it was powerful. And that's the work to help every woman feel that way, no matter if her body is disfigured, or has had injury to it, or is not what is shown on the magazine covers. So just get on my soapbox, sorry.
I love it. That's great. Thank you, April. That was beautiful. Love that. The goddess within, of course. Yeah, love it.
And what I do, Cheryl, is every morning when I take a shower, I stand naked in front of my mirror and say, "You're a sexy broad," or "Hey, baby, what's happening today?" or "Lovely lady." And
we talk about that self-talk also. You
Yeah,
have
right.
the negative self-talk, or you have positive self-talk.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So just do it. I recommend that every woman do it, because after a while, you look at yourself and you go, there's that beautiful lady.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that exercise is in my book, that one, the getting naked in front of the mirror. That's right there.
Right.
And more about getting naked too. Chris, did you want to say something?
Well, I did have actually something that April said is a little bit toward it, but I had this other thought. So one of the things that I do is I lead a group on Monday nights, and we call it one thing and we really do something else. But what we do is we look at how different aspects, how we're impacted by our history or what's going on today. And really, the goal for me anyway is to dig deep into some of the feelings and ideas that we have and see if we can clear them. That's kind of that's sort of what I'm trying to get at when we spend this time together on a weekly basis. And so oftentimes we're looking at universal issues, like one of the really big issues that came up this past several months since January 6th about unity. How are we going to achieve unity? Unity is a really big thing. It doesn't seem like we're there. And it feels like we're really far away from universal unity in the nation. And so given that as kind of a framework, I'm curious, I thought it might be helpful to talk a couple minutes about how feminine energy and the divine feminine and the awareness of the feminine receptivity and those kinds of things, and the things we've talked about tonight, how can we take those ideas out into the world and actually use them in our, not just the interactions with those who are close with us, because we may have been possibly thinking about that tonight, but how do we how can we take some of these principles we've talked about and just have a better life of our own and a better life for our community and for the nation? Not like, okay, so I've learned how to protect myself. That's not where I was going. It's more about, I think it takes, it's not a simple question, but how to have more heart, how to be more receptive, how to use our intuition, how to do it for the good of the children, that kind of a thing. And I was just wondering if we couldn't maybe spend a few minutes on that, issue of the feminine out in the world.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Not because I have the answers, but I thought we might just explore that.
I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I like this idea of the children. I'm thinking, goodness, wouldn't it be wonderful if children are educated in this divine feminine and divine masculine energy themselves, as April, you were saying that you did with your son. And that's so, yeah, that's so beautiful to start within the family, that children have this identified within their own body and can understand how that energy works. That's beautiful. And then also then bringing that forward into the world about how the doing energy can be overdone and how the feminine energy really needs to be honored. And so then how do we do that in our relationships? How do we do that with others? How do we show up? I love what Robin had mentioned earlier about her experience about running that own energy within herself, because if we were able to do that more consistently or more regularly, or when we need it and when we can call upon it, that's a really powerful tool, because then we're going to shift the energy that's around us, because we'll be in balance with the masculine and the feminine. I mean, I think there's so many applications for this. And the story that comes to mind is, of course, the one that Linda shares about this man who was at a workshop and on a political tirade and spewing things, and the energy shifted. And so the women from the US were kind of rising up to meet that energy, and it would have been this awful clash and like, okay. And so
Right.
in order to avert that, there was a woman from Spain who really came into her own feminine energy and amplified it, and then went up to the man and actually touched him, because they were allowed to do that at this workshop. And she shifted the energy. She shifted his energy by being soft and gentle and nurturing and actually touching him.
Yeah.
And that we all have that capacity, whether we're in a male body or a female body or anything in between, is that we have that energetic within ourselves, and we can shift the energy as we become more aware of where other people are at. We can meet them and create an antidote, if you will, to the situation that we're experiencing. And I think that's really powerful. That's a huge shift that we can create within the world of unity, of peace.
And that is so beautifully expressed, Tara. And what it brings us to is that moment in time where we can be gentle with ourselves too. When those, maybe, challenging masculine energies come up, in ourselves, how can we balance it with maybe the calming feminine?
Yeah, beautiful.
But I find it easier to deal with male energy than I do with the male energy in some women, because sometimes you don't know how to handle that. It becomes kind of difficult because they're coming across with that male energy and it almost feels hurtful. Where if a man was doing the same thing, it would be, oh, that's just because he's a guy. So I don't know how to deal with that sometimes.
Well, I would invite you, Dottie, to drop into your pelvis, because then you're taking on more feminine energy, and see how that affects this experience of women being more in their masculine.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Great.
I think too that it's possible that a woman who's rising in her masculine lacks coherence.
Mhm.
So she's not running her primary energetic. She's running something more learned, something less core, possibly. I mean, yes, we all have it, but if I've been taught that a woman in her strong masculine cannot out masculine a man. It's just not going to work.
That's
and
true.
You can try. You can try, but generally speaking, a man is going to be able to run more masculine than a woman is going to be able to run masculine. And so, if you want to go up for that battle, you might win, you might not. But the alternative then, as you were talking about, is to shift the polarity. But it's tricky, and you have to be responsible. You have to act in a responsible manner, and there's different ways of being feminine. So, you have to find your integrity.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And these are the things, sometimes it's easier to just like go off on somebody because the other could be a lot of work, but you're not going to win. So
I don't ever go off on people. That sounds horrible.
I believe that, Dottie. I love that.
But, you know, I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, well, I can't talk to my brother because he believes us and us and us. And I said, why does it make such a difference what he believes? And she said, well, he shouldn't believe that. And I said, but that's him. And that was impossible. She wants to go off on him and tell him why he's wrong, and she'll never change his mind. But she wants to prove she's right. And that's what I don't understand sometimes with male and female, or the male and female energy, where somebody has to be 100% right, then that makes you 100% wrong. I just accept people for who they are.
Beautiful.
And it seems like that works for me. It might not work for other people, but you know, I'm the eldest of 10. So I've got a lot of kids in my family who believe very differently. They're different religions, they're different beliefs, they're different political parties, and we all get along great. We just say, hey, I love you. Somebody goes, da, 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 and I'll say, I love you too. End of story, you know?
I love it.
Adi, I wanna just acknowledge and thank you for modeling that. Because being able to witness you model that, sometimes it's kind of confusing for me because I can take a pretty judgmental position based on someone's behavior, not on who they are. And having you as my teacher and my model and my mentor has been a gift. I appreciate
Thank you, April. Thank you.
So beautiful.
Very nice.
And it all seems to go right down to that source of love.
Right.
You know, love, that limitless source, or the infinity, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
And how that love can be accessed, you know, by first, as you said so beautifully, you know, Tara, you know, being gentle with ourselves and really paying attention to ourselves and where that comes out.
Right.
Love that.
you know, Marianne Williamson says that every action is an act of love or a cry for help.
Mm-hmm.
It really was helpful for me to hear that. You know, I like things boiled down to minimums. For, you know, break glass, right? Yeah, in case of emergency, break glass, and that's an example of one of those. Okay, great, all right. Either that's an act of love or a cry for help, and I can move on now because I get it, and I do think that. I mean, I don't know. I guess I haven't engaged the question of whether love is more masculine or more feminine. I think they're both. I'm going to guess that they're both. But there's a feminine aspect to love because of the nurturing, compassion, openness, receptivity, that those intuition. Not to say that there's not other kinds of love, but I think that the calm, compassionate mother, accepting, unconditional, the kind of love that's associated with all that realm, that feels like the feminine side. And last night in our meeting, we were talking about Amachi and how she gives hugs and what that's like. And really, you know, when I sit here, I think, well, maybe we're just really lucky that for women, so I'm just making this up on the spot, but maybe we're just lucky that women may have a better sense or a better engineering configuration toward love. I don't know if that's true, and I don't mean to keep the men out, because I think there are many, many men who are filled with love, but I wonder if women don't have a head start.
I agree. I do. Actually, I spend time with some people of the Lakota tradition, and they talk a lot about how women have their own heartbeat and know it. And the drum is there for the men to play to remember their heartbeat. And I wonder if it correlates with that. I wonder if then the innate capacity of women to love is being expressed through them saying, oh, you don't need the drum. We as men need the drum because it's not innate in our nature. And that they use the drum for that. And that's interesting because again, I always saw it as very patriarchal, and it's like, oh, women aren't allowed, women, and now I have a different point of view just from that share, Chris. So thank you. And I'll explore it further with them about that.
I wish we had some men here who could comment on that, but I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, April.
And I agree with you, April, by the way. Come to that awareness, with the drumming, because you and I both have a great love of drumming, and it's very, very powerful. And how we can unify with the drum, which is a circle, and how we can bring all of those energies in to dance with each other.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I think this is a good place to end. Oh, April, you, of course. Bring it on.
I just wanted to reflect and acknowledge something you shared that was profound for me and will stick with me. And it seems like a duh how I didn't have it as a clear thought in the past, but just the fact that our bodies, I always talk about our bodies being the container for the spark of divinity within, but the way you articulated it, and I'm probably not going to be able to pull it up now, about how it's a necessary thing to have this, to honor this from that place of necessity to, well, I don't even remember how you said it, but it meant it meant a lot, even though I can't remember it now. I'm so sorry. Do you remember what you said? How you spoke it?
Yeah. That it is the body that is a vehicle that we can attain enlightenment, because it's only through this human existence of being in this body that we can have the lived experiences that we need to have. And yes, it is the sacred vessel. It is the container. So then we can alchemize the energy that we need to go to the ecstasy.
The way you weaved it together was so beautiful and kind of deeper than I had taken it before. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, April. Thank you.
And we want to thank you, Tara, for bringing us to this amazing place where I felt like we were sitting in a circle around a nice campfire. Here's our campfire. and just sharing the wisdom, of so much incredible work that you have brought to us today. I mean, your journey has been amazing. And I really thank you for the gift of you. And I'm definitely going to go out and get your book. It looks like a wonderful book. Really want to support that. And, for everyone to continue. And maybe what we can do is just put our hands on our hearts for a moment and just say thank you to our wonderful body. To our wonderful body.
Wonderful body. That's
for
not
all
hurting.
it carries.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tara, if we want more of you, how can we pursue working with you? And I know that there will be some more invitations, but also, do you currently offer workshops? We know that your book, you could tell us the name of your book again and the best way to go buy it.
This book is Rediscover My Body, and it's only available on Amazon at the moment.
Okay.
And there's that.
Tara, where do you live?
I live in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So you might want to come down someday and maybe do a sermon and do a class.
It would be my honor. Thank you. Thank you, Dottie.
I'm sure Corky is going to be in touch with you about that.
Wonderful. I appreciate that.
She needs an email address. Could you give us an email address?
Sure, I'll put that in the chat. So
Okay.
I have it too.
oh, you have
Okay.
it too? Okay. Do you want to just give that to them, Chris, then?
Yeah.
Thank
Wonderful. So you can reach me at my website, rediscoveringmybody.com. I'm hosting a class, I think in June. It's a 9-week class, and it's based on my book, and it's based on the retreats that I teach too, but it's in a more sustainable format. So it's 90 minutes once a week, and I love that. That's how I began this work of Rediscovering My Body, and then it went to retreats, and now it's back to classes because we're all meeting on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then I have a couples retreat that's happening on Zoom in June as well. But I'm offering a free webinar at the end of this month. And the webinar is on desire. And I think that it would be a really good addition to this work that you've done this evening. And I think it's Tuesday, May 25th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And it's free. And it's just an opportunity to gather again and learn a little bit more about your own desire.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
If you want to send something out about that, you can send it to Corky directly. You might find her on the Zoom, possibly, the Zoom that I sent for the 5:30. Otherwise, certainly send it to me and we'll get it out. We have a number of distribution lists, as you know. We have the energy class, we have UCM, we have CCL, and they all have a different piece of that Venn diagram of people, all of whom are, you know, we all cross paths around this. I'm tickled pink, in my feminine pink. I'm tickled mauve that you were here. You know that when you and I first like spent a short time, it was like, whoa, I get it, spark. And it's been a little while. It took a little bit of this and that to get you here, but I'm so pleased, and you've been so patient with us. And I'm so pleased with what you've brought here for UCM tonight, and the wonderful things that we can anticipate in the future as well, on a personal level as well as on a group and community level, and the universe.
Thank you so much, Tara. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all of you, be gentle with yourselves and let us explore further, and join us for our next month's presentation at UCM, which is always on the second Tuesday from 6 to 8. And you're welcome and willing, and we'd love to have you come. Thank you again, Tara. Take our love and support and healing. And we have a tradition that says, do something bad and decadent for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, before the next day, in the next 24 hours, just for you to spoil yourself.
I love it. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you all for showing up tonight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so